Hi, welcome back, and in this video I want to talk to you about what are commonly known as scameras. So that's a combination of the words scam and camera, and I've picked one up as part of a job lot. This is it. What a fantastic looking beast it is. It is the Nikkei PDS 35mm system. And these things are very, very basic, very, very cheap 35mm cameras that were mass produced, I believe, coming out of a factory in Taiwan. There were countless different variations of them under different brand names. This one's obviously meant to be a ploy on the word Nikon. I also have seen Olympia knocking off Olympus. I've even seen some actually called Canon and things like that. And they really hit their peak in the early 90s, which kind of coincided when I was working in photographic retail. And we'd come across a lot of these, and they really did at that point live up to their name, Scam. Because what we found was that early 90s, there was a lot of, and this happened right the way across the UK where I live, there were a lot of empty retail units, and people would rent them for the day and run what were basically rip-off auctions out of them. And they'd sell a lot of different stuff in these rip-off auctions, and these scammers were one of them. And they'd be presented the camera with very often a very cheap flash unit, which this one didn't have with it, a crappy lens hood and strap, in a faux aluminium case. Now, the cases were generally made of aluminium, although we did come across some that were completely plastic, but rather than the aluminium being ply-backed, which is what you need and is incredibly strong, most of these were cardboard backed, were completely useless. And people would genuinely pay £200 for these kits because they weren't allowed to get their hands on them properly and things like that beforehand, because it was an auction and they'd have ringers in the audience upping the price. And if you convert £200 in the early 90s to today's money, we're talking £500-600 people were paying for them. And they would then bring them along to camera retailers such as the one I worked in, basically just to see what they'd bought and whether it was worthwhile. And we would break the news to them that no, what you've just bought is basically rubbish. It's not worth anywhere near the money you paid for it, and you've been ripped off. And most of the time, before the people could get back to these auctions, they would have disappeared and closed up shop, because they operated for a few hours at a time and were gone. If they did manage to get back to them while they were still open, they generally would have bouncers who would remove them from the premises, etc. So the entire thing was very illegal. And this got so endemic, we were dealing with so many people bringing these in, that we actually bought one off of somebody, not for the amount of money they paid, and basically put it on a tripod in the window with a note underneath it going, if you see these for sale, do not buy them, they are a rip-off, that kind of thing, to warn people off. So, what is your typical scammer? Well, this is a fairly representative model here, in that it's designed to look like an SLR, a single lens reflex camera, but it's not. There is no pentaprism, there is no mirror or prism in this hump up here. They are, in fact, as you can see by this viewfinder here and this viewfinder here, simple viewfinder cameras. The lenses in them are normally single element plastic lenses, although they put a cheap plastic cover over the front to make it look like a bigger lens that actually does absolutely nothing for your image quality. If you pop one open, let's get this one open, you will notice that we have not only, let's angle this up so you can see it a bit easier, a curved frame here, but also a cheap plastic curved pressure plate, and that's to make up for the fact that the lens is not even remotely corrected. And as you'll be seeing on the images that are popping up in between here, even that doesn't manage to correct the fact that the lens is utterly appalling. They really are the cheapest you can possibly get. Now this particular one is a 50mm f 6.3. It does actually have a variable aperture on it. You'll notice that it's got an aperture scale there which is adjusted by twisting the front of the lens, ranging from the 6.3 up to f16, and it's got pictures of, you know, cloudy, overcast, partly sunny, fully sunny on there, and it does actually, let me just open it back up again, so no, actually you won't be able to see it, but it does actually move to basically L-shaped pieces of plastic like this in and out to vary the aperture, so it is doing something. This one is also a power winder on it, which when I ran a test roll of film through, gave up the ghost after 19 shots and basically was no longer able to transport the film, so basically just ruined the rest of the films. I'm quite pleased that I only put a 24 exposure roll in there, because if I'd have put a 36 in there I'd have wasted a lot more, and that's mainly because the take-up spool for it just has these tiny little catches down here, very little room around it, and probably reached its capacity and just simply stopped transporting the film itself. Now it does say it's a made in Japan optical lens. Well, none of those statements are strictly speaking probably untrue. It is optical in that it lets light through it. It may well have been made in Japan, but it's a piece of plastic. It's a cheap piece of plastic in there. It also claims that it has a power drive on it, which indeed it does. It's powered by 2 AA batteries, but it also claims to be power optics. I've absolutely no idea what that means, unless it refers to you manually powering the change of aperture up here. You'll notice it has a fake Japanese Optical Standards gold sticker on there. These were put on cameras in that time period to indicate quality, but they were issued by the Japanese Optical Institute. This one wasn't. It hilariously does have a serial number on a sticker, and even more so, if I open the back, stamped on the back, it has a patent number. I have googled this patent and it doesn't exist in any form for cameras, so it's not real. And of course, to make it even better, it has techniques written on the side just here. One of the other things that these are quite famous for is that they are quite heavy. However, if you take the bottom off, you find out why they're heavy, and I'll be back in a moment. So there we go. As if by magic, I've taken the bottom off, and what you can see here, I can't get it out unfortunately without breaking the camera, but there is a huge piece of cheap metal here. In fact, it's incredibly soft, so there's a good chance it could be lead, which is not particularly healthy thing to have in the bottom of a camera, but that's where all the mass in this thing is, in this huge lump of metal that's just dumped in the bottom, and you can actually see the quality of the camera underneath, and the fact that there is literally nothing to it. There really isn't. So what are the image quality like of a Scamera, and is it any good as a Lomo? Because while these were stupidly expensive as they were sold in their time for the most part, were they any good? The simple answer to that is absolutely not. Now, you can get some vaguely interesting results out of them, and some of the shots here are interesting in that regard, but anything, you know, you've got a sweet spot at the very centre of the lens, probably for around about 1 to 3 metres, and that's vaguely in focus and reasonably sharp. But anything outside that, anything closer, Anything further away and anything around the edges, no. You're just getting a mess there, a blurry, out of focus mess that is no good. So it's incredibly limited in that regard as to what you can get in focus in those regards. And there are better cameras out there for Lomo purposes. You know, pick up any of the actual Lomo models. They are more expensive, but they're going to give you much better results. Now, as I say, I picked this one up in a job lot, 10 cameras for £10, so this thing effectively cost me £1. And I still think it's not worth that, being perfectly honest. It really isn't. I have far more enjoyable results out of my Holga. Now, my Holga, I picked this up second hand for, I think it was maybe about £20 I paid for it, so 20 times more than this. Shoots 120, 2 different film format types. You can get an adapter to run 35mm through it and get 35mm panoramics out of it. It's got a better quality lens in it. It makes no pretenses. It's got a flash in it as well. It makes no pretenses to be anything more than it is. But you say, but Gideon, you can pick these up for £1. Well, actually, only if you're really lucky, because a lot of people still seem to think, for some unknown reason, that these are worth money. And I think it's when people who don't know anything about cameras pick up a load of cameras in a job lot or from a relative's house or something like that, and they pick it up and they feel it's got a bit of weight to it and automatically think it's worth something. And it's not. I've seen these going on the likes of eBay and Etsy for £50 on their own. And they're just not worth it. So, by all means, if you find one really cheap and you want to have a go with one, then give it a go. But be aware, the lens is of extremely poor quality. The power winders in them are not up to the job, so you may well find you don't get all of the shots out of your roll on there. And because they are so cheaply made and cheaply constructed, you will find there's a good chance that something will break in them and they're just not worth it. Honestly, for a small amount more, you can pick up much, much better cameras that are quite honest about what they're going to be, even if it is something like the Holga I've just shown you, which is completely open about what it's going to be and is actually, while still a Lomo category camera, capable of producing much better results than something like this. So there we go. That's a quick look at the world of Scameras and my particular one. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please do hit the like button, and if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when new content gets uploaded. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye.